Hey there! So in the next couple tutorials, I'm going to walk you through how to create a very basic drawing app, and it will be integrated into our chat room. So if you look at the screen right now, I'm able to make little drawings inside the chat room just by clicking and dragging my mouse. I'm drawing a dog bone, which is the mascot of our workshop. So eventually, in a later tutorial, I will also show you how you can send your drawing to people who are in the same chat room as you. So that's super cool. Let's take a look at the JavaScript library we will be using. So the tool we're using here is called p5.js. If you're not familiar, it's a JavaScript library for artists, designers, and people of all different disciplines to learn creative coding and to make two-dimensional drawings and more using JavaScript. So within the scope of this tutorial, I'm going to show you some very simple, basic things you can do. A very important page to look at is the p5.js references, and under here you can learn a lot more about what is possible. So you want to keep this page open in your browser as you're working with p5.js. So now let's jump to the bare bone template that I will provide a link into the video description for, and I'm going to click on the bare bone template and remix the project so that you would have your own copy of the bare bone template project, and now we can alter them. So it takes a minute. Great. Now if you look at sketch.js, this is where all our JavaScript code as well as p5.js code would reside. So let's take a look. What we want to do is to make sure that every new chunk of code that we insert into our sketch.js is going to be really like neatly organized and separated and not get all mixed up. So I'm going to create multiple different custom functions along the way just to make sure that everything is kind of like, stored inside its own drawer and its own box. And if that's not clear, I'll walk you through it so it hopefully become more clear. So the first thing you want to do when you start a p5 canvas is you want to use something called createCanvas. So here I can type in createCanvas, and inside of that parenthesis of createCanvas, you want to put two numbers. One is the width of the canvas and one is the height of the canvas. And I'm just going to make a note here too, so you can remind yourself what those numeric values are. So what this does is it creates a drawing canvas on your web page, and you can use that to place any kind of shapes or any kind of drawings on top within the boundary of the 500 pixel by 500 pixel canvas. So let's take a look at what the web page look like right now. So if you click on show and in a new window, you would see this. So that pink chat room is the default template, and the canvas is actually here. You can't see it. It's resting right underneath the chat room. We can't see it because it's white, and so it will help to give it a background color. So that's what I'm gonna do next. I'm going to go into draw, and I'm going to say background parenthesis. And inside of that parenthesis, here you need three different numeric value. And if you ever, need to look up what exactly am I supposed to put in the parenthesis, go to the reference. So if you click on background here, you can see oh, it takes like one value. If you insert one value, it will be grayscale. If you insert three value, it's going to be RGB. So I'm going to go with the RGB. One resource that I use to look up an RGB color is the HTML color picker by W3 Schools. So if you go onto this page and let's say I'm going to pick the cyan color, and you can then choose a preference of the shade for cyan, and right here inside the parenthesis next to RGB you want to copy that three different numeric value and come back to our sketch and just plug it in. Okay, so if I come back to my page, by the way, glitch auto save and then auto updates the page, which is super convenient. You will see that, well, the cyan color has popped up. That is great. That is exactly what we're looking for. Obviously the canvas is floating and it's not resting or nesting inside of our chat room yet. Don't worry about that for now. I'm going to cover how you combine the two in the next tutorial. But for now, I'm just going to cover the simpler basic P5 stuff. Okay, so the next thing we can do after background is maybe adding a simple shape on the canvas. So what I'm going to do is returning to the reference, the wonderful, life-saving reference, and click on ellipse. And now you see, whoa, ellipse has 4 different values. And those 4 values are each the x position of the ellipse, the y position of the ellipse, and the width and the height of the ellipse. Great. So let's come back here and write exactly that. So I'm going to put this ellipse at the very center of that canvas, which means that x is going to be 250 pixels, and y 250, and 30 would be the width and the height. I just came up with that number. You can obviously make it however big or small that you want. So xy with height, and let's come back and see if it's working. Great, look at that cute little circle. So going to the next step, I would assume a lot of people don't necessarily want like the default circle, which is a white circle with a black stroke. So one thing that you can do, especially when it comes to creating a drawing app, is we can take the stroke off. So let's write noStroke right here, which would help you take the stroke off. And you can then next change the color of the fill, and that would call for a function called fill, and inside the parenthesis again three numeric number representing RGB. So let's come back. I'm going to find a nice deep purple color here. Here you go. Great. Sweet. Okay, so now we have a canvas. We know how to change the background color of the canvas, and we know how to create a tiny little circle that's purple in the middle of the canvas. What do we need to do to bring this a little closer to a drawing app? So my proposal for the next step is for the circle to move along with my cursor. So wherever my cursor is on the screen, the circle should follow the cursor. And later on, we can try to figure out a way for the circle to leave trace, following the cursor. So the way you would have to do that is using something called the mouseX and mouseY. So what is mouseX and mouseY? mouseX and mouseY are P5 system variables, and these the name mouseX and mouseY are essentially storing the x and y coordinates of your cursor wherever it may be inside the browser. So your browser is constantly taking, cues of like where your X and Y position is, like every frame of like its rendering. So how we would use that variable is essentially plugging mouseX and mouseY into places where you would usually put an X and a Y value. So if I put mouseX, mouseY there and return to my sketch, whoa! Now you have a circle that follows you around and you can take it to all different places. When I move it to the edge, it gets stuck on the edge sometimes because once my cursor leaves the browser, it can no longer detect the location of my cursor, right? Great. So this is all nice and sound. How can we push it one step further so that we can make the purple leave a trace and, like act like it's drawing as we move the circle around? So this returned to a really important concept and an exciting topic in P5, which is the difference between function setup and function draw. And let me just show you first. Let me demonstrate it to you first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight line 17, and I'm going to hit Command / to disable it. And when I come back here, whoa! So when I come back here, when I drag my cursor around the canvas, it's making drawings. So why is that? Our browser actually shares some similarities to traditional mediums such as an animation or a film. The browser actually has a frame rate. It actually has frame per second. So for a modern browser, usually the frame per second is 60 frames per second. So essentially what is happening here is that at every single frame, a circle is being placed and drawn onto the canvas. A new circle is being added at every single frame. So when I'm moving my cursor around, it creates an illusion that I'm drawing, even though essentially it's really just placing a ton of circle onto the screen. And when I took out that background, the background is not being drawn anymore, right? And therefore we can sort of like let the circle just continuously draw on top of itself. So what if I don't want to have a white background? What we can do is copying that line for background and add it under setup. So when I return here, you'll see that, ooh, I have my cyan background, but I can still draw on top of it. So what is happening here? The difference between setup and draw is that setup, the code inside of setup only get executed once. So on line 10, a canvas is created. On line 11, the background has been drawn once. And the code jumps to function draw. And inside of function draw, whatever code you put inside of that, inside of those brackets would get repetitively drawn and looped infinitely as long as your website is active. So what is happening here is we are separating the background and put it outside of the draw function so that it doesn't get drawn every single frame. Instead, it only get drawn once in the beginning, and the circle would leave a trace around the canvas. The last thing we are going to do is we're going to place these code inside a neatly organized, like customized function like I've mentioned. So now I'm going to create a function called function drawing app, and I'm going to copy line 17 to 19 and paste it inside of the drawing app, and I'm going to load drawing app inside of the draw function. So let's just come back here and make sure it's still working. Great. And I'm also going to do it for functions line 10 and line 11. So I'm going to write I think I'll put it right there. I'm going to add a function called function p5 setup. And I'm going to copy this, delete it, and paste it inside of function p5 setup, and return to loaded. Okay, and one very nifty tool inside of Glitch is you can click on this magical button called format this file, and it would turn all your messy sort of like placement of your code into an organized version, which is awesome. So let's just return, and always make sure whatever new code every 2 line of code you write, come back and make sure that it's still working. Okay, so it may seem a little redundant to be separating everything into its own boxes when we have so few lines of code, but because this tutorial is going to move into many different directions, mixing in with many different kinds of features from different libraries, we just thought that it would be like a lot more helpful to make sure everything is just like contained and not all mixed up together, which can be super confusing. Okay, one last thing, if you've noticed, and this really bugs me, I don't know if it bugs you, which is like next to some of these p5 functions that we have called, there is this red warning sign. And it's almost like yelling at you, telling you that you've done something wrong, which we haven't. So createCanvas is not defined, background is not defined. What is happening is that the code base is not recognizing these p5 function as when you're writing them inside of Sketch.js. So if it doesn't affect the outcome of your code, if you feel really icky about it, or just want to get rid of it, one thing that you can do is at the very top of your the variable groups, you can add /$ global, and you can add createCanvas, and as many as you want. I can add background. Let's do that for now and see what happens. So see, once I add those function into a global context, like the arrow sign, the red underline has disappeared, right? And you can obviously keep going and add all of these p5 function or mouseX, mouseY to make them disappear. It's obviously kind of meticulous to have to add all of them, but if it makes you feel more comfortable to just like take off all the arrows, you are certainly welcome to. So in the next tutorial, I'm going to show you how you would nest your canvas into the chat room. See you soon.